presentation. Our next speaker is John Osterman, a local celebrity. He is a paramedic, a educator, a training coordinator at one of our local departments, and he's going to provide some thoughts for a new EMT. Thank you, John.
Had no idea I was a local celebrity, but I'll roll with it. It'll work. Cool. Well, hey, thanks everybody for sticking around to the very last segment. Um, it's cool when we started planning this and Floyd was asking for topics and things like that. Um, I felt like we don't address new people or young people in the career path. It's real easy to get on all the exciting topics of like STEMI care or mobile stroke or EKGs. And um, this isn't really a clinical talk, right? We're not going to get into deep clinical stuff, but I think it's still a good talk because we're going to kind of just some ideas I have for young EMTs that have come from my experience. And so to start with, just a conversation I had, gosh, probably 6 months into being an EMT. I was a young EMT. Had to sit down with my supervisor that went kind of like this. I was like, hey, um, I don't know if this is the right field for me. I went to EMT school because my fire department sent me. I am doing this. I got into this because of my fire department, but um, I don't know. I did really good in class. I was like top of my class, but now that I'm on a truck with a paramedic, I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe this isn't for me. And I don't know if anyone else has ever had that moment of question, of worried if this is the field for them, but it definitely was a concern for me. And my supervisor, she was fantastic. She was kind of a local legend in Northern Ohio EMS. As the first female paramedic in Northern Ohio, and she had some good insights for me. And I kind of distilled down our long conversation into a couple nuggets that we could talk about. So the first thing she told me was that I needed a mentor, and I needed to find somebody that could um, really help me out. And so uh, being from Northern Ohio, Mentor is a city, so I don't think she was talking about going to find the city. So, looking for a mentor. What is a mentor? Well, to define it, it would be a experienced and trusted advisor. If you looked it up in a dictionary, but really, practical terms, it's a person in or near your career path or in the line of work that you're pursuing that's further down the path that they can help you um, find the path when you're out there, and it's easy to get lost and stray, and having a mentor or someone that can guide you along really is going to help you progress, find satisfaction, find out that this is more than just driving a truck with lights and sirens on it and yelling at people that aren't getting out of your way. That um, there's so much more to this field than just the adrenaline rush things. And so mentors help you find your path, help you find your way when things get rough, when you're confused. It doesn't need to be some kind of a formal sit down contract where you journal and share your dreams and aspirations. Just finding someone that uh, will encourage you, that has been where you are or is where you want to be, um, and just asking them how they got there, what has shaped their path. If you're having some common pitfalls, when I switched services, I had a lot of trouble with the IV caths when I switched services, and sitting down with some trainers of just, hey, help me out here with this because I'm having a really hard time. That's some basic mentoring, right? And so, like I said, someone who's respected, been where you are, and is where you want to be, that's a good person to choose as a mentor. Um, Now, you might be like, John, I'm in a service that maybe I don't have anyone here that I really look up to. This is just a paycheck. I like being an EMS, but um, who knows about this place? who else could I find that's a mentor? Well, I'll tell you that I think um, we live in an awesome time where we've got this technology. You know, we're all taking part in this online virtual conference. Use social media, search out the people that you look up to, um, and reach out to them. I've done this before with, I actually got some mentoring one time, and I don't know if, I think he's on the call, but Floyd's boss. There was a while where I was really considering a career shift, and I had lunch with Floyd's boss and got some mentoring from him and guidance and pointed a direction. Um, I hope he doesn't care that I just gave him a shout out, but whatever. You can reach out to people, use your social networks, find the people you want. But if you're really remote and maybe like there's just a hard time, even books, I think books are highly underrated. I've definitely gotten a big passion for reading of late, and I was really encouraged even more to keep going. If you guys know who Jim Mattis is, he's former Secretary of Defense, a very decorated Marine, and he was well known towards the end of his career when he was a Marine general. He'd be traveling and have like this huge library of books that he would bring with him on his deployments. And when he was asked to it, he was quoted as saying, "Thanks to my reading, I've never been caught flat footed by any situation. I'm never at a loss for how any problem has been addressed before. Um, Reading doesn't give you all the answers, but it lights what's often ahead on a dark path. You know, we're all going to have some really challenging life situations occur, difficult partners, difficult patients, difficult situations. As unique as they will feel, I promise you that you're really going to have to work hard to find yourself in a situation that's never been encountered before or never been written about. I got a bookshelf here behind me, and if you see it, I think my video is going. So yeah, so if you see my bookshelf, it's actually double stacked. It's a time for another trip to IKEA so I can make even more space. But you can get mentoring from people who aren't even alive anymore. Marcus Aurelius, Roman generals, Jim Mattis. He's got a great book on leadership. John Maxwell. We'll talk about him here in a little bit. Jocko Willink has some great books. I can't do a presentation and not talk about Jocko Willink. I'm a total fanboy, and I don't care. That's fine with me. But books, reading, blogs. There's so many great resources out there. Podcast. I think Floyd has one. I don't remember the name of it, but Floyd's got a podcast. Tyler, he was on earlier. He's got a podcast. Um, David, he was supposed to be on here. He's got a like. So there's so much resources out there, so much opportunity to find a mentor and someone that can really help you grow in the career. Because I think this is really cool work. This is awesome, but you've got to have a mentor and someone to kind of help you stay grounded, that you can vent to, that can really point you in the right direction, help you get over the obstacles that you're encountering. So that was the first thing she told me, was finding a mentor. The next thing was remember that this is a team sport. While you in EMT school may have been at the top of your class and really done a great knockout job, that was good to get you through class. And she reminded me of a kind of a insightful thing, that the role of EMT or advanced EMT paramedic school isn't to make you the best paramedic, EMT, advanced EMT, whatever. It's to get you to the entry level of knowledge and skill to start the workforce. So even if you finish the top of your class, you're still the entry level requirements to enter this work field. The real learning starts once you're in the field, and you need your team to support you to really be successful. And Anne made a comment earlier. I did some research while some other folks were talking. That's an African proverb that if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you've got to go together. You need your team to support you. And so we've seen those teams that work really good together, right? The like this crew, these Toronto paramedics that are doing this training drill, they're well rehearsed. They're doing their jobs, and they go like a smooth machine. We've seen those teams. whether it's a trauma team, a surgical team. Shoot, man, if you're into sports, you see like a NASCAR pit crew, right? Those teams that practice and practice and practice, and um, we all play a part in this team. So the way that we can really develop in our teams is, first, you've got to know your job. What are your responsibilities? To take this to like a cardiac arrest. Tom was talking earlier of how his system does the high performance CPR. We're working on implementing high performance CPR at my shop, and I'll tell you, it's difficult, but one of the best things is telling people know your job and do your job. If it's a cardiac arrest and you're the driver and you show up, your job is to grab the ALS bag, the portable suction, and you're the first person on the chest doing compressions. If you're in the passenger seat, you're the grabbing the monitor, the Lucas device, and if it's a PEDS arrest, you're grabbing the PEDS bag, and your job is monitor on when you get to the patient's side, and then your compressor number two. These are pre-assigned roles, they're predetermined designations, and knowing your job speeds up the team. The team performs better. So once you know your job, the other thing you got to do, you've got to know your partner's job. Your partner depends on you to do your work, but you can help them do their work too. We've seen those crews that can run a call without talking to each other because they're anticipating each other's needs. They've paid attention. They've been very intentional in what they're doing. And if you're working with a paramedic, most paramedics have a groove they like to get into once they're in the truck, and it's like, say it's like IV time, right? If you know your partner always likes to use an 18 as their first attempt, and they always like to go for a left arm IV, then having everything set up over there, getting everything ready to go while they're talking to the patient or doing some intervention with the patient, smooths out the flow. So you got to know your job, you got to know your partner's job, and you need to know your boss's job, right? We've all worked for those terrible, miserable people that make our lives awful, and we've all tried to tell them how to do their job, right? But we haven't really supported them in what their job is and what efforts they have. If we know what our boss's job is, their job, they're responsible for our actions, they're responsible for making sure that um, our daily life is good, that we are doing everything that we're responsible for. But then they've also got to deal with the public. They've got to make sure all of our paperwork's done right. They've got to make sure the station chores are done. If we do a good job knowing all of that and taking care of it all, then your boss can, instead of have to nag you, they can spend the time to make your life better, right? Because really, this is a team sport. We all depend on each other, and even if you're in a fly car and you're a solo responder, eventually there's a team coming that's going to support you. We need each other. So, to summarize, you've got to have the team approach because we're going to go further together. Um, there's no rock star that performs by themselves. Okay. So the third thing she told me, my supervisor told me, was you've got to keep an open mind. I love this picture. I wish I knew more about where it came from. I just found it on social media and grabbed it because I think we've all worked with this guy, right? Their head's so big they can't fit through the door. They're so proud. They're so stubborn. Um, we know this guy or gal or person, but they don't have a very open mind, and they get pretty rigid. And if you've ever read, going back to reading, there's a book called Mindsets, written by Carol Dweck, and she talks about two types of mindsets. This person is kind of, in my mind, this is the embodiment of the fixed mindset, that everything's rigid, it's set in place, that they have their innate abilities, and that they can't be tested or challenged because they're just that good and just excellent at everything. But if you want to be successful, you need to keep an open mind. Things will change. If you've been in this field for a couple years, you know that um, epinephrine, as an example, it's been a mainstay of practice since like the early 1900s, and it is getting more and more challenged. Of, is this actually the right dose? Is this the right drug? Do we give it on the right schedule? Hopefully soon we see a change. And man, it's gonna be a like seismic shift in healthcare when they change the dose, the drug, or the frequency of delivery in cardiac arrest for epinephrine. So things will change, and you've got to be flexible and keep up with it because this is constantly a growing field. And to go along with having an open mind, I have a goofy non-medical story. So this picture is a very tired, mentally and physically fatigued me that Walt grabbed and put in our poster. Um, so so I went skiing for the first time a couple of years ago, and I always mentally thought, skiing, how hard could it be, right? Like you do the lift up the mountain, and then you ski down, and life's good, piece of cake. So I found out pretty quickly it's not a piece of cake. It took me like 2 hours to ski down this mountain. I lost count of how many times I fell, and it was terrible. And I got down to the bottom of the mountain, and my buddies had gone up and down like 3 or 4 times by the time I made it down once. And I was feeling pretty not so proud. I don't know what happened to my slide. I wasn't feeling so awesome at the bottom of the hill. And I was thinking that I wasn't very proud of myself. But um, when I heard about the mindset stuff and how, you know, I realized I made a mistake, and that's okay. My mindset needed to be shifted. My knowledge needed to be shifted that skiing isn't quite as easy as it looks when you're a beginner. And I learned about that. And in preparing for this talk, I read a book and some material by John Maxwell, and he has this thing called the cycle of success, and it uh, really just reinforces the growth mindset out of Carol Dweck's book, in that we're all going to be tested in something, and the test could be skiing down a mountain. But for this example, let's talk about you have an unresponsive patient that you think may be a stroke, and so um, you call it a stroke. Everyone, it's panicked. You pick up on the panic, and you take them to the hospital. And while they're getting the CT lab calls on this person's blood work, that their blood sugar is 4. And so we could all just say, whoops, that was a big failure. I didn't check a blood sugar on scene and treat it. And what do we do with this failure? Well, if you're a growth mindset person, you find somebody to blame. All right. This is clearly not your, or I'm sorry, not a growth mindset. If you're a fixed mindseted person, this is clearly not your fault because you're an excellent provider. Obviously, the lab has mixed up the samples, or your partner didn't check the blood sugar, or your glucometer is not calibrated. But it's definitely not your fault because you're an awesome paramedic. And how could you make that kind of mistake? But if you're a growth mindseted person, you're going to continue this cycle. So you're going to own your mistake. Hopefully, you should. You should definitely own your mistake. And then once you've made it, you're going to learn from it. And you're going to say, huh, okay, well, it's egg on my face. In the future, I will not bring a stroke patient or any unresponsive patient to the hospital without having checked their blood sugar. So you've learned. And when you've learned, you now have made this your routine. You've improved your assessments now. Now you're a better paramedic or an EMT or whatever. And when you improve, you then are going to re-enter care, because now your approach, your standards are all different, right? You've added this another assessment, another test to how you assess patients. And so now you're going to get another stroke patient or an unresponsive patient. You're going to repeat this cycle, except you're going to check their blood sugar now because you've learned and you've increased your ability and your knowledge, and you're a better provider, right? So this cycle happens to all of us and happens constantly around us. And really, I don't think there's a way to escape it. There's definitely ways to alter it, right? If you fail but you don't learn or improve, or then you're just going to keep failing, right? You're not going to improve. None of us want to stay stuck. We want to improve and grow. And there's some cool things that happen when you improve and grow. There's this quote that I found that was attributed to JFK, but I don't know if it's actually him or not. That's a rising tide lifts all the boats. So when you, back to the ambulance, when you improve your assessment skills, you're going to share the knowledge nuggets that you learn, right? You and your partner are going to push each other to grow and develop. And um, as you both improve, you both get better. And then you start to make an impact at your station. And then as your station crews all pick up on this knowledge, now your station crews are all better at assessing patients. And so this little bit of knowledge has spread through everybody because you failed, you've learned, you improved, and then you re entered uh, back into how you're doing stuff. So um, don't forget that we all improve each other through this. Um, this is also a great quote. So when you're growing, you've got an open mind. You're gonna suck at something. And this character is from Adventure Time. It's a kind of a weird cartoon, but sucking at something is the first step towards becoming sort of good at something. We're all gonna suck at something. Outside of EMS, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It's the sport of choice I have. It keeps me in shape, and it keeps my ego in check for sure. I definitely am not great at jujitsu, especially since we've been away from it for several months. But I've gotten better at it because I embrace that, man, I suck at it, and I'm going to keep attempting and keep working at it and keep growing because um, I want to be sort of good at it, right? It's a pretty cool sport. Um, you're going to have this feeling as you progress through your career that psychologists they chalk it up as imposter syndrome is what it's called, and it happens to successful people as they grow and develop, and that you feel like you don't belong, you feel like there's been a mistake, I'm not the right person for this field. I definitely shouldn't be talking at this conference because I'm just a goofy guy that I'm just a paramedic or just an EMT. um, that's not right. The imposter syndrome means you're growing. It means you're going in the right direction and you're challenging yourself. And if you fail, that's okay. Learn from it, improve, and then re enter your attempts to get better, right? Um, I think imposter syndrome means you're on the right path. I think if you're always comfortable, it means you're never growing, you're never being challenged, and you're never improving. You're going to be stagnant. We've all met that EMT or paramedic or whatever that's been at their current level for 10 years, but has never really repeated or developed past their first year. They've just been a 10-year provider that's repeated their first year 10 times. They still make the same mistakes. They've not learned from it. They've not grown. They're not teaching anybody. They're not mentoring anybody. They're not developing. They're just stagnant. I would encourage you to please don't be stagnant. So, to summarize, you got to have a mentor, someone to help you grow, someone to help keep you on the path, show you the path, someone to vent your frustrations to that can't punish you, and that can speak truth into your life, someone that's admirable and respectable and kind of the person you want to be, or at least has attributes that you want in your life. This is a team sport. We all need each other. Know your job, know your partner's job, know your boss's job. Make each other look good, and you make life awesome. Your patients will benefit from it. And keep an open mind because you don't know everything. You're going to be wrong. You've just got to be brave enough to suck at something. So, in light of all that, I really think this is more than a talk for my thoughts for a new EMT. I think this should really be how to be a beginner because we're all beginners at something, and we that's good. We need to grow, and we need these tools to keep growing and move past just being a beginner and being sort of good at something. So, with that, thanks for coming to my TED talk. There's my email. There's my phone number. Um, I don't think it would be a stretch to say everybody that's been a speaker here uh, is happy to talk to anybody that needs advice, needs input, just needs someone to talk to. Please reach out to us. We all want EMS to progress and develop, and um, we want to keep making an impact. We want to keep growing, and we want to bring you along with us. So, with that, this has been a blast. Floyd, thanks for letting me jump in and talk. And if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, John. I think that was a phenomenal lecture, and it's great information for new and experienced EMTs and paramedics. Wonderful job.
Thanks, guys.
Any questions from our attendees? And I want to thank our attendees. We have
Oh, yeah.
national and international attendees. Someone asked, oh, that's great. Hang on, I got this.
Yeah.
We have been joking back and forth all day because, sometimes I would mute the audio and it's kind of a fun back and forth. Yeah, we can let the dog. It's not a good conference call if there's no animals in it, right? Anyway, some have asked how they would know about future events like this. So the best way would be to probably follow the panelists and other attendees that were on today to try to keep costs down. We didn't want to promote it, and we didn't want to do any paid promotions because that is costly. And it's not too difficult to throw an event like this together for free. So if you all enjoyed it, please provide feedback to us and we can have another one like this in the future. All right. Do any of our other panelists have anything to add?
Hey, thank you all for coming today. What, Foley? You didn't mute me this time. Oh, good. Yeah, thanks you all for coming. This is awesome, and it thanks to Floyd and to John, to David Pfeiffer, who unfortunately picked up a virus. Yes, you're right. David Pfeiffer has rabies, and that's why he couldn't be here today. I'm being told that David Pfeiffer does not, in fact, have rabies, but was deployed with NDMS on Monday and subsequently is essentially leading the nation's response to the coronavirus in the Southwest. So we wish him the best. And also to Ryan Hunter, who was part of the planning committee, who also got deployed Monday, I think, too. So thanks to those
Julie.
guys, and we're certainly thinking about you. Julie, absolutely, Julie Derringer, who's been basically told us how to put on a conference and has been awesome to work with. Thank you so much. And Floyd and all our speakers, and to you guys, thank you so much. And we will do it again.